Okay, so Jenna Ellis put in her plea deal. And so has, I don't even remember that lawyer's name, but she was very front and center with Trump in the beginning. She's put in a plea deal as well. Both of them agreeing to testify against their co-defendants. And the rumor mill, and it is just rumors, that they are being threatened or their families are being threatened. I don't know. So we're going to look and see if we can substantiate any of that, oh, they're terrified, or, oh, they're turncoats, or what in the world is the so-called evidence? Because I do find it very odd that lawyers who know the law would cave.
Agree to a negotiated, Judge.
All right, well, if that's the case, then why don't we have Ms. Young come back up to a microphone, either at the jury box or in the witness stand. And
so if you do not know where Jenna is, she's between the white lady and the white guy. We did not get to see her come in. I would like to have seen her demeanor as she came in. Is it portrayed strength? Is it strength? Is it weakness? Is it fear? You know, those kind of things. Because it would give us an idea of where we're at mentally and where she's at as she sits down. Because usually you'll see a transition. If you know you're going into a situation where you need to be strong no matter what is going on, you will see the transition. And it's a lot of portrayal. You also see it if the person needs to look weak or cry a lot. You'll see happiness and then they'll be like, oh, I'm such a victim. But again, we didn't get to see any transition.
we can go through the colloquy. Yes, sir.
I just want to point out that also Ms. Ellis also has counsel out of state, Mr. Melito. He's present in the courtroom and he wanted to get permission to come and have a seat at counsel table.
No, certainly. Sir, I think we also need you to spell your name for the record just so we're clear.
Yes, Your Honor. It's Melito.
Okay, welcome. All right, then let's get into it. Mr. Hogue, do you have a preference between the podium or counsel's table?
You can just stay here if that's all right with Your Honor.
It sounds fine to me. All right, Ms. Young, whenever you're ready.
Ma'am, Ms. Ellis, can you please raise your right hand?
So we have some tight lipness going on. The smile is not throughout the head. We've got a lot of stress.
Swear from the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God.
I do.
And are you the Jenna Lynn Ellis that's named in accusation?
So the woman messed up her name, and she gives her a reassuring, bigger smile throughout the face of saying, I don't hold animosity. So now we go into the little bit of mental here we have. When you have someone doing that to the individual that is higher, which is this lawyer, it tends to say that there's no animosity. So she's trying to reassure the lady in red that all is good. That does not mean anything about secret deals. Get that out of your head. We're just looking at the relationship.
23 SC 190514, charged with one count of aiding and abetting false statements in writing.
So part of that starts to fall. The face begins to fall. It doesn't completely fall, but it goes back to the portrayal smile as soon as she starts reading charges.
Yes, ma'am.
And is this your true and correct legal name?
Yes.
Are you under the influence of any drugs, alcohol, or medication today?
No.
Is there any medication that you should be taking that you have not taken today?
No.
How old are you and how far did you go in school?
38 years old, 39 on November 1st, so very soon. And I completed my Juris Doctor degree.
And are you able to read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes.
Have you gone over this accusation with your attorneys, Mr. and Mrs. Hogue?
I have.
Do you understand that you're charged with one count of aiding and abetting false statements in writings?
Yes.
Have you gone over the minimum and maximum sentence with your attorneys?
I have.
And do you understand that that carries a minimum penalty of 1 year to a maximum penalty of 5 years to serve?
Yes.
So we go over the penalty. We're still tight-lipped. We're still in stress. You see her little cock in the head. It's like a twinge. So that penalty definitely is a big stressor. It's the pinched nerve, so to speak.
Do you understand that you have the right to plead guilty or not guilty to this charge? And if you plead not guilty, you have the right to remain silent and move forward with the jury trial.
Yes.
Have you reviewed the waiver of rights with your attorneys?
I have.
And have you gone over that waiver of rights and also signed it along with your attorneys?
I have.
Have you had enough time to speak with your attorneys in regards to the facts in this case and any defenses that you may have if you were to have gone to trial?
Yes.
Do you need any more time to speak with them?
No.
And are you satisfied with their services?
Very much.
Mr. Ho, do you waive formal reading of the act?
So then you see that big movement in the face, very much in a bow to them. Now we're looking at someone who, one, she's with her attorneys. Whatever the situation is at this very moment in her mind, and we're going to assume that she's intelligent because she herself is an attorney, that they have done above and beyond, at least in her mind, because of the facial expression we got with the big eyes, the bow, that they did their job. And she is very satisfied with what has been done.
Accusation against your client.
We do.
Do you waive any defects that might lay within the accusation?
We do.
Ms. Ellis, have you been arrested on these charges?
Yes,
And does the state's understand that there are no other outstanding related warrants to this charge? Do you know of any to your knowledge?
I do not.
Do you understand that this is a negotiated plea, which means the state and your attorneys have reached a recommendation to make to the court?
Yes,
Do you understand that the court is not bound by that recommendation and could sentence you to the maximum penalty for this charge?
yes,
Do you understand if the court does not follow the state's recommendation, then you can withdraw your guilty plea and move forward with a jury trial?
yes,
Do you understand that the conditions of this plea involves 5 years of probation, that you pay $5,000 of restitution to the Georgia Secretary of State within 30 days, and it's in my understanding that you're asking to be treated as a first offender?
yes,
Do you understand that special conditions of this
All right, so the eyes kind of fell on that $5,000 one. And what I mean by eyes in this particular instance isn't necessarily the eyeball. I'm talking about the corner, where we get our crow's feet. That fell. I'm going to sit there and go back.
of restitution to the Georgia Secretary of State within 30 days, and it's in my understanding that you're
So the body falls. You actually see it. The eyes kind of fall. The body falls in a bigger movement. Everything falls. It's like money is an issue here. $5,000 in 30 days. I ain't got $5,000 in 30 days. That might be a crux of the situation. I don't know. But alas, we don't know much. Seems like all we hear is rumors and a lot of actors we see.
asking to be treated as a first offender.
yes,
Do you understand that a special conditions of this probation is that you complete 100 hours of community service, that you write an apology letter to the citizens of the state of Georgia, which you have already done, and the state will put that into evidence as State's Exhibit 1 for the court. That you testify truthfully at all hearings,
That was an interesting look.
1 for the court.
I'm going to assume that this conversation right here is about the letter because she motions down to what's in front of her, which is the letter. And it's a defiant look. Yes, lips curl up on the end just briefly, eyes narrow. All right, so now we see that. She does not like this letter, which more than likely she wrote it because it kind of disgusted her.
You testify truthfully at all hearings or trials involving co-defendants, that you have no communication with co-defendants, witnesses, or the media until all cases have been closed.
yes,
That you must continue to provide additional recorded statements and affidavits to the state as required. That you must also continue to provide any requested documents or evidence subject to any lawful privileges asserted in good faith. That you shall not post anything on social media, including through any agents, about this case until the conclusion of all trials and appeals. That you must continue to fully cooperate with prosecutors, included but not limited to participating in interviews with prosecutors, appearing for evidentiary hearings, and assisting in pretrial matters. Do you understand?
All right, so we see that lip get tighter, coming up like it's trying to smile. It's just more portrayal. So she's not real happy about all of those conditions. You can't talk, basically, is what she's being told. So we're never going to hear her side of the story.
That these are the conditions of the recommendation that the state is making to the court.
I do.
It is my understanding that, have you gone over the first offender status with your attorneys?
I have.
And you're asking this court to be treated as a first offender?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you pled guilty or nolo to ever in this state of Georgia or any other jurisdiction?
No,
Have you ever been sentenced for any crime, felony or misdemeanor under the First Offender Act?
no,
And you've gone over the First Offender Act with your attorneys, and do you understand that if you violate the terms of your first offender sentence or commit a new offense while on first offender probation, your first offender status could be revoked and you could be adjudicated guilty and you could be resentenced up to the maximum sentence for this charge and the accusation?
I understand.
So here we go. You can be the maximum sentence. That smile gets even more stress. I have to say, of all the times that we keep watching the poo show that we all are forced to watch. This is probably the truest interaction I've seen. All those politicians acting, and I mean every one of them. This lady, on the other hand, is acting, but she's desperately trying to hide her stress, which is way different than trying to manipulate people into giving them donor money.
You understand that this guilty plea may be used to enhance sentencing of any other convictions in this jurisdiction, as well as other jurisdictions, including the federal courts.
Yes.
Do you understand that you are being placed on probation and you cannot violate your probation by committing any other crimes in any governmental unit or violate any special conditions of your probation?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you violate the probation or any special conditions, that you will be subject to revocation for the balance of the sentence?
Yes.
Do you understand that you are not allowed to possess any or use any firearms while you're on probation?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you are not a United States citizen, this guilty plea will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation?
I understand.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea, just as there would be if you were found guilty at trial? For example, your guilty plea may affect your right to vote, your right to hold office, your right to serve as a juror, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, the ability to obtain employment, or your membership for the bar in this state or any other states.
I understand.
Do you understand that you are waiving all defenses, including any mental health defenses, by entering this guilty plea?
Yes.
Do you understand that if you went to trial, you would have the right to a trial by jury, the right to see, hear, and confront witnesses called to testify against you, the right to testify or remain silent and not incriminate yourself?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are giving up the following rights: the right to a jury trial, the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself, the right to confront witnesses, the right of the assistance of counsel hired by you or appointed by the court, the right to the presumption of innocence, the right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence, the right to subpoena witnesses and compel production of evidence, the right to have the charges against you proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and the right to appeal if convicted of these charges.
Yes.
Has anyone forced, threatened, promised, or coerced you in any way to enter into this guilty plea?
No, ma'am.
Is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you are in fact guilty?
It is.
How do you plead to aiding and abetting false statements in writings and under accusation 23 SC 190514?
Guilty.
And is this your signature along with Mr. Hoag's signature on the accusation?
It is.
And is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with full knowledge of the charges against you?
It is.
Do you understand that you may have only limited rights to appeal this guilty plea?
I do.
And do you understand that you would have 4 years from today's date to file habeas corpus as in regards to this guilty plea?
Yes.
You're under the accusation is non-guilty plea to enter. According to the state's investigation, Ms. Ellis does not have any criminal history, so she would be eligible for first offender, which the state has no objection to.
All right, before we get into a colloquy, I'd ask Mr. Hoag, if you could take back up the waiver form. There's actually a spot on here to circle about the first offender status. Right there.
Yes, sir.
Well, that is actually a sad look. So she's going over this paperwork to confirm, and she's very smiley with her attorney. She brings her face up, and then the eyes, they do not focus outward. They find like a point that they can look at that doesn't stimulate the brain, and that's the inward look. It's like her eyes are probably staring at the mic because it doesn't stimulate the thought, because it's just a mic, which allows the pupils to pretty much just stop, focus that, and then the thoughts on the inside can run without putting your hand over your eyes or covering your face. And then you see the sadness as the face is barely holding on to its stress smile.
Thank you, sir.
If this case had gone to trial, the state would have shown the following. On December 3rd of 2020, the defendant did appear before a meeting of a Georgia Senate Judiciary Subcommittee in Fulton County, Georgia, with co-defendants William Rudolph Lewis Giuliani, Ray Sterling.
There you go. That's the look. Rudy Giuliani seems to be something in that. She's starting now to bring out what would have come up. She is with these individuals, and the head comes down just slightly and pulls inward. Pretty much it's an ooh moment. Ooh, get away from Giuliani. So whatever it was, it's Giuliani.
Smith III and other individuals associated with Donald.
And then Smith III comes in, and you see the head cock as she goes into the next statement, and other individuals associated. So we do not know who the other individuals to be named in this, as far as, that particular incident, or at least I don't. But that cock to the side on these other individuals, it seems like Rudy Giuliani is not the only one she's got a little bit of mental animosity towards.
Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated, also known as the Trump Campaign. During the subcommittee meeting, Giuliani and Smith, acting as attorneys for the Trump campaign, made the following false statements. One, that at least 96,600 mail-in ballots were counted in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia.
All right, here we go. This is fun. Finally, something besides a depressed woman to look at. So you see her reference in her brain, and you see the cut in the eyes to this statement, to this woman. She don't like it. That's all we can say as far as a hard fact. She don't like that statement that's coming out of her mouth.
Despite there being no record of those ballots having been returned to a county election office. Two,
despite there being no claims of it being returned to a county election office. And that's the crux. Head pops up on that one and goes back to get away. That's the pinch point. That's the pinch nerve.
That 2,506 felons voted illegally in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Three, that 66,248 underage people illegally registered to vote before their 17th birthday prior to the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Four, that at least 2,423 people voted in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia who were not listed.
All right, so we got a little bit of defiance. We don't know what the conversation is between them, but we get a little bit of that negative head shake, the sternness in the face coming through from the side, stress, and then the fake smile of stress comes back on. So we missed out on this part of it.
As registered to vote. Five, that 1,043 people voted in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia who had illegally registered to vote using a post office box. Six, that 10,315 or more dead people voted in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia. And seven, that Fulton County election workers at State Farm Arena ordered a poll watcher and members of the media to leave the tabulation area on the night of November 3rd, 2020, and continued to operate after ordering everyone to leave. The false statements were within the jurisdiction of the Georgia Secretary of State and the Georgia Bureau of.
So we're seeing some references there. It's not much. Of course, you get to this point where someone's just reading off a bunch of stuff that the brain kind of is like, well, this is what they're going to say, and I'm just going to deal with it and pretend to smile.
Investigations who were each conducting investigations into allegations of fraud in the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Once completed, these and others investigations affirmatively determined that there was no widespread fraud that could have affected the outcome of the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. The false statements were made with reckless disregard of the truth and with conspicuous purpose to avoid.
The body is having a hard time containing itself. You're seeing the head cock and turn, and then the twist in the spine. She don't like it. The body's protesting, and the face is becoming very narrowed.
Learning the truth. The defendant attended and abated Giuliani Smith in making these false statements by assisting with the execution of.
I just want to comment on this. She's wearing eyelashes, people. She's going to blink a lot.
The December 3rd, 2020 Senate Judiciary Committee meeting that was held in Fulton County, Georgia. The false statements were used as part of a plan by the Trump campaign to solicit the Georgia General Assembly to disregard the certified results of the presidential election in this state and instead to unlawfully appoint non-elected.
And pretty much the smile is gone now. It's hardly there at all. Pursed lips and some anger finally seeping through. How long did she last? What's the minutes on here? She got to about 12 minutes before she couldn't deal with it anymore, and the body protested so much that she can't pretend she needed a break.
Anything else, Mr. Hogue, that you would like to add?
Yes, if you could make a note that this is not a crime of moral turpitude, that would assist us in other venues perhaps.
And is that an issue of negotiation between the parties? I know that has differed from resolution to resolution here. So where are we with that?
It is not, Judge. We're going to ask that the same verbiage that has been put on the other dispositions be put on this disposition as well, which I believe it says like the defense and the state have agreed that this is not a crime of moral turpitude.
Okay.
Get that language to Ms. Bordas when we leave.
So just to clarify, it's not a point of contention between the parties. It's being jointly recommended, this language. And is that the case for...
All right, now you're actually seeing her reaction when she is relaxing. This is the language that she likes. This arena, so to speak, her body is agreeing with, and you see how much she moves with it. The stiffness, the portrayal is gone.
Before we finalize everything. So at this point, Ms. Ellis, you're not required to do so in any way. But if you would like to add anything to the record or address the court, you're certainly willing to do, able to do so. And now would be the appropriate time.
If I may approach, I have it in writing what she's about to say.
I have one attached to State's Exhibit 1. Is that the same?
Oh, yeah, you have it already.
Okay. And so would the intention be that this also be going into the record as State's Exhibit 1, the written form? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hogue.
Thank you, Your Honor, for the opportunity to address the court.
So she's having a hard time right out of the gate. The throat goes tight. That's why it like goes real soft there for a moment.
As an attorney who is also a Christian, I take my responsibilities as a lawyer very seriously, and I endeavor to be a person of sound moral and ethical character in all of my dealings. In the wake of the 2020 presidential election, I believed that challenging the results on behalf of President Trump should be pursued in a just and legal way. I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many more years of experience than I, to provide me with true and reliable information, especially since my role involved speaking to the media and to legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states.
All right, so you're hearing a transition in her voice from that point. So we've got that high squeakiness. She's gotten through her mental anguish, which is admitting her wrong and throwing somebody under the bus. Now she can breathe, and now she's just going to read. The voice goes to a semi-normal level, and yes, the tears are still flowing.
States, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado bar.
Now she's playing with her ring. It could just be a stressor. If there was other video that I saw when she's in a stressed position and she's playing with her ring, it means nothing other than it's stress. But we don't know. But right now, we're just going to go with it's stress.
Censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court and apologize to the people of Georgia. Thank you.
And we see that ending point.
Already before the Colorado bar who censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court and apologize to the people of Georgia. Thank you.
A little bit of disgust. Thank you. Eyebrows go up, lips curl. It's a little bit of disgust.
And then thank you, Ms. Ellis, for sharing that all too often. I don't get to hear the perspective of the accused in this case, in these cases, and so that's appreciated.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Is there anything else, Mr. Hogue, that you would like to have as part of the record?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Ellis, I have a few questions that I have to go over with you. Do you understand the nature of this charge that as it's been reaccused against you?
I do.
And you heard the rights that you would waive by going forward with this plea. Do you still wish to waive those rights?
Yes.
And are you pleading guilty today because you agree that there is a factual basis as outlined by the state to support this guilty plea?
I do.
Mr. Hogue, are you satisfied your client is competent and that this plea is understanding, voluntary, and that there is a sufficient factual basis to support it?
I am, Your Honor.
Ms. Ellis, do you have a weapons carry license of any kind in this state or any other?
I do not.
Well, I find that there is a sufficient factual basis for the charges, and I find that this plea of guilty is knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently entered. Ms. Ellis, you've asked to be sentenced under the First Offender Act, which is a request that I will approve, and I'll withhold adjudication. But I do have to notify you that you can't withdraw your plea simply because you don't abide by the terms of the sentence. And the terms of the sentence would be as negotiated and agreed to by both parties. On the sole count of aiding and abetting false statements and writings, the sentence would be 5 years probation. You're to pay a $5,000 fine to the Georgia Secretary of State's office within 30 days of the entry.
Yeah, I see that same kind of movement again when he talks about this five grand in 30 days. So the face is falling.
The final disposition in this case.
And you see the lick of the lips. Money is definitely an issue here.
To complete 100 hours of community service. You are to cooperate with the state and testify truthfully in any further legal proceedings in this case. And you're not to have any contact, either personally or through other agents, with the media or any co-defendants or witnesses, I believe, in this case, as was outlined. We will include the language that is sent to us subsequently from Ms. Young, of course, with Mr. Hogue attached on that email to make sure that it is the exact language as agreed to by both parties. As requested by counsel as a first offender sentence, this would be automatically sealed upon entry, and there'll be a behavioral incentive date of 3 years as well. I've been provided a motion to null pros the counts on the underlying indictment in 23 SC 188947, and I'm signing that now. Is there anything else from the state that you believe we need to have on the record in this case?
Judge, and if I misspoke, I said it should be a $5,000 restitution because the max fine is only $1,000.
Excuse me, that's right.
I may have missed.
No, that was my mistake. So it is a $5,000 restitution. I didn't hear a fine.
There is no fine, Judge.
Okay, understood. Anything else I need to clarify or may have?
Wow. Just in case you missed that $5 grand isn't even a fine. It's just restitution. To who? Oh, it's to the state. So you couldn't fine her for a lot. Apparently $1,000 wasn't enough. Shoot, it's enough most Americans will cry. No, you had to make it a restitution so you can get to the $5 grand mark. That's BS.
The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind and he was willing to make a deal.
If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.